Quantum Journeys, Tales of Multidimensional Healing and Discovery. A Tiny Entity Attachment Causing Major Disturbances by Kryssa. Me asking for help with weight loss. This is one of those things a client called is famous for. And I've had quite a bit of experience in this field, as I used to run a 12-week weight loss and body image recovery program. So I felt pretty good about accepting this client. We went through the usual questions regarding when she last felt she was at her ideal weight, and whether she was happy with her body at that time, or if she still managed to find things to dislike about it. I asked her about the patterns of her eating and the emotions associated with the food that she was consuming, both before, during, and after eating. We examined the cycle of shame and guilt that she felt stuck in and determined what her goals were with regards to both food and body image. Our session was online only, as she lived in a different part of the world. And when we revisited her intake at the beginning of her session, she disclosed that she'd had a late-stage miscarriage many years ago, and every time she would lose any amount of weight, she seemed to gain it back again and be at exactly the weight that she was when she'd miscarried. She felt that this had become her reset. She questions how she felt about that miscarriage and about her grieving process. She said she never really felt like she had the time or energy to properly grieve because she was raising 2 young children already. She also said that her doctor had determined that the scarring left behind from the DNC procedure following that miscarriage, which happened at 30 weeks gestation, would likely prevent her from carrying another pregnancy to full term. So for health reasons, she was placed on birth control implants. This didn't sit well, as she really did want another baby. So we decided to visit her temple of healing, to meet and work with her own inner healer as the very first stop on her quantum journey. After inducing a trance and establishing a connection with her higher consciousness, we went to her temple to meet her inner healer, who appeared as a Greek goddess named Cynthia. As a side note, I've encountered Cynthia in several sessions. I like to say that people's inner healer will show up as whatever sort of avatar their consciousness deems necessary for whatever work that we're doing in the session. But the fact that there's been multiple Cynthias and they all show up as this Greek goddess maybe suggests that there's something else going on here. In any case, I asked Cynthia to please do 3 body scans, beginning with my client's physical body. My client said her entire pelvic region and lower back became very warm when Cynthia reached that part of her body. Cynthia shared with her that there was an imbalance in her womb and that she was working to bring balance, but that the source was at an emotional level. So when we completed the rest of my client's physical body scan, where there were a handful of other imbalances brought up and easily resolved, things like a sluggish thyroid, pain in her left shoulder, something in her right knee from an old injury, I then asked Cynthia to please perform an emotional body scan. The emotional body is kind of part of the physical body, and it's the job of the subconscious mind to protect both. So when an emotional trauma is either too great to handle with the tools the client has at the time of the trauma, or if the client doesn't take the time or can't process emotional trauma with the tools that they currently have, then these traumas will take up residence in the physical body. Perhaps you've heard the body keeps the score. This isn't to punish the person. It's just a temporary storage until the person does have the tools and or the time and energy to process and heal. Eventually these traumas, and not all of them are traumas with a capital T, some are traumas with a little t, will resurface as physical pain or discomfort or ailments when the person is actually ready to process them. So again, not punishment. They come up when the person is in a state of enough stability or security that they can handle it. When the storage facility is too full is another reason why they will come up, and it can't accept more, which is an indication that it is time for the person to get some better tools and start processing and healing now. As Cynthia began to perform my client's emotional body scan, she once again got to the reproductive system and then shared some images with my client, letting her know what was stuck there. My client told me about being 4 years old, playing with a doll and fantasizing about being a mother, specifically about being a better mother than the one that she had. She told the doll that she was going to love her always and forever, no matter what, and never punish her because she's just a baby and babies don't need punishment, they just need love. She then went on to another memory of being in utero, not yet born, still in her mother's womb. She said she felt scared because something happened to make her mother afraid, and she immediately felt her mother's fear. I asked her to just go ahead and rise up out of that scene of the memory so that she was no longer in her mother's womb, but was able to observe what was happening. She realized that it was a car crash. She said, it was a car crash. Everyone survived, but I can see that my mother is pregnant and worrying about me. My father is there, but he seems angry more than scared. My mother is scared for me, but also afraid of my father's anger. I asked my client then to perceive this through the understanding of her highest self, and she said, oh, he's actually not angry, but he doesn't know how to be scared without anger. And then my client's subconscious mind began speaking too, almost laughing, and it said, yes, that's it exactly. Every time I was afraid of him, it was me reacting to my mother, reacting to his anger, which wasn't actually anger, it was fear. I get it now. And then she said, oh, Papa, I'm so sorry you never learned how to just be afraid. What a burden that must have been. I asked if her Papa was still alive, and she said no. I then asked if he was there with her now, and she said no. And then she said, oh, wait, yes, there he is. Hi, Papa, I love you, and I understand you so much better now. I asked if he was available for a hug, and she said, yes, definitely. He is hugging me now. I can't hear him, but I think he's saying that he loves me too, just without words. I just know that that's what he's saying. I asked if the soul of her miscarried baby was there too, and she said, no, I don't see him anywhere. At which point, she got a pain in her pelvis, and she began to get really uncomfortable and sort of moving around in the chair. I was very glad I asked her to be in this, it's like a reclining chair bed for this session, because she, had she just been in a sitting upright chair, she probably would have writhed out of it. I asked if we could please go ahead and send some healing light and energy to her pelvis, and then she exclaimed, it's him. He's still attached to me. Not his body, but his energy or something. He never left. And she had planned to name this baby Jeremy. So she said, oh, Jeremy, I see you now. You've been stuck in me this entire time. I asked if he was ready to let go and continue on with his soul's journey now, and she went silent for several minutes before quietly crying. I felt it best to wait until she had experienced this precious moment before moving on. Eventually she said, he's ready, but I don't know if I am. I don't want to let him go. I was supposed to be the best mother, and instead I killed him. I was supposed to love him forever and always, no matter what. And it's me. I'm the one who's kept him here. That's why I kept all this extra weight on my body, and why it's exactly the same weight I was when he died. This is why I have pain and scar tissue and guilt. So much guilt and shame. She began crying and saying, I'm so ashamed. I was supposed to give you the world, but instead I killed you. I asked her to let her highest self show her the reality of the situation from its point of view, to let her see all of this from the greater perspective. And she began nodding her head. And while still crying a little, she began to smile. And she said, oh, I understand now. There was something wrong with Jeremy's heart. And it was not my fault. It was nobody's fault. He tried to repair it after he entered into my body, into my womb, but just couldn't. So he decided to leave and wait for another opportunity. I asked, when did he enter into that little baby body in your womb? And she immediately, without any hesitation at all, said, at 30 weeks. I asked her higher consciousness if this was normal, if this was the usual time a soul entered into a human body, and it said, sometimes, not always, it depends. There's no one size fits all. Some know they need to help the mother or father or both sooner, so they enter earlier. Some wait until just before birth, some even just after. I asked what is the soonest, and it said, there is no soonest because the higher ones can orchestrate a baby. They know the risks and accept them. So of course I had to ask, who are the higher ones? Stay tuned for part 2 of the rest of this little story from Quantum Journeys, Tales of Multidimensional Healing and Discovery by Kryssa Bowman.